An SABC News presentation.
Good evening to you. A warm welcome to Interface here on SABC3. My name is Tembi Samachele. Well, workers across SA will celebrate Workers' Day this week amid rising unemployment and tensions in the platinum mines. Battles within COSATU also seem to be more focused on internal conflict, and union bosses have also come under fire for earning huge salaries whilst they purport to be fighting for workers' rights. The question we are asking on Interface tonight is, are unions really protecting workers' rights, or are they now more concerned with politics? Let's introduce our guest to you. Liv Shange is the Deputy General Secretary of the Workers' and Socialist Party, otherwise known as WASP. Professor Devon Pillay is from the Department of Sociology at Wits University, and Tulani Khumalo is the Project Coordinator at the National Council of Trade Unions, or NACTU. Remember that if you would like to join in the discussion, you can always find us on Facebook. It's Interface on SABC3, or you can tweet me at Tembisa Machele. Welcome. Thank you very much for coming through.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Let's start with you, Prof, and talk about the issue of unions being responsible and accountable to the workers. That is how it was always supposed to be. It was the workers that were supposed to be driving the unions. Is that still the case, or has it changed somewhat?
You're absolutely right. That's one of the foundations of COSATU, workers' accountability and having a strong say in how a union is run. And I think that it'll be difficult to have a blanket view,
Sure.
To say there's one position within the unions. And you'll find some are much more responsive, like for example NUMSA, I think are much more responsive in recent, the past year or two. They've revitalized to become more actively engaged with their membership. But others have become what is known as oligarchic, where the top leadership have become distanced from their membership. They, as you correctly say, they earn very huge salaries. They've modeled themselves on CEOs, for example, which is completely against the ethos of trade unions.
But why are they allowed to do that? Where are the workers that put them in those positions in the first place? Why are they not revolting?
Well, that's the process of oligarchy, where leaders become separated because they are professionalized and because they hold knowledge, and knowledge is power. You find that elected worker leaders have less and less ability to really impact on decision making, and that's always a tension that a wise and enlightened union leadership will always be sensitive to ensure that there's bottom-up accountability.
Is that what's happening with WASP? Are you detached from your members? Are you not taking your cues from the people that you should be leading?
No, not at all. Workers' and Socialist Party is still a new political party, and we've come out of workers' struggles and community struggles. We're still very rooted there, and take all our direction. Our program is rooted in those struggles.
But how do you make sure that you're independent of the politics that are going on? Because one of the issues that has come up with WASP is that you tried to forge an alliance with the EFF, and that hasn't worked out so well.
We guided by very simple aims of uniting working class struggles, and that hunger for unity is there in all struggles, whether it's on community, workplace or level or amongst the youth. And at the same time, we also are guided by very strong backbone and very strong socialist principles that
Sure.
are our foundation. So I think that it's that program as a backbone is also what has weakened trade unions in South Africa, because of throwing out the socialist principles, not only the worker control that guided COSATU as it was founded, and many other trade unions, as not the trade unions.
But the question is, how would you be free of the politics if you were to indeed succeed in forging your alliance with the EFF?
Well, we're not, as a political party, we're not seeking to be free of politics at all. We are trying to champion a working class politics, a different kind of politics, a politics that is owned by the workers.
And how would that work, though? How would you make sure that workers' rights were properly represented while at the same time being involved in the muddy waters of politics?
Well, I think as you've taken our interactions with the FF as an example,
Yes.
We were guided there by very strong principles that were discussed and agreed in democratic discussions within our structures. And that included that we cannot compromise. There were certain non-negotiables. We cannot compromise on how we see nationalization as not just state ownership in any form, but under worker control, democratic control of workers and communities. So when we couldn't get the space within any arrangement with the FF to be free to raise such questions, they wouldn't accept that kind of freedom of different views. It was unfortunately a given that we had to go back. That was our mandate.
Okay, so Tulani, let's bring you in here. How has the independence of NACTU been exemplified in the way that you do business, in the sense that how have you managed to make sure that you champion the cause of the workers without getting the politics involved?
Well, NACTU, its founding principles and that are enshrined in its constitution indicate that it is a worker-controlled institution, like any other trade union movement, in line with the requirements even from the Department of Labor in terms of Section 98, 99 and 100, which govern the principle of worker control and the participation of workers. But
would that not govern all unions?
It is supposed to, and that's why I wanted to have a take at Prof here, that you can't paint all trade unions with one brush, save for one union that you think is collecting mandate from workers. I think a number of unions are collecting and advancing the interest of their members.
How does yours do it?
For example, I'll give you a simple example with the Association of Mine Workers and Construction Union, and it's currently typically with the mining houses in the Platinum Belt. From day one, they have collected a mandate, even which was generated before they organized those workers. Those workers decided in 2012, prior to the Marikana massacre, that they were going to demand a 12,500 minimum wage, and AMCU was not in the picture at that stage. And they have carried forward that mandate and taken it through collective bargaining process, tested it with the employers, and through the refinement and the interaction and the participation of workers, they've managed to change the mandate to 4 years and propose different ways of settlement. So it tells you, I can agree that probably the level of activism has died down. You will not see unions in the streets fighting for their cause as it used to happen previously. But however, to say that unions have lost the touch with their membership is entirely not correct.
Prof, I want to get your response when we come back from the break, because I'd really like to know if these unions are really doing what they set out to do in the first place. But we have to take a short break, and we are taking your thoughts. Interface on SABC3 on Facebook, or you can tweet me at Tembisa Machele. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're watching Interface, and we are talking about workers' rights and Workers' Day being on Thursday, of course, and whether or not the unions that represent the workers are actually still having the interests of the workers at heart, or if they have now been embroiled in politics to the point where they have lost sight of what's important. And we are chatting about that today. And we do welcome your thoughts, as usual, on Interface at SABC3, or on my Twitter page. It is at Tembisa Machele. Now, Prof, before the break, you wanted to respond to what Tulani was saying, but as you do that, let's look at some of the numbers. 16,000 employees lost their jobs in the mining sector in December 2013, 2,000 in manufacturing, 7,000 in transport. How is that in the interest of the workers?
You see, I want to take issue with your starting framework.
Yes.
Which seems to imply that workers shouldn't get involved in politics. I think that's a fatal mistake. COSATU was founded on the notion of the working class leadership of the anti-apartheid struggle. And what's commonly said, in the rewriting of history is that the ANC is solely responsible for our anti-apartheid struggle and our victory in 1994. Whereas the working class, organized primarily through COSATU, but also through NACTU and other independent unions, were at the forefront of the anti-apartheid struggle in the late 1980s. So there was a different notion of political engagement. It was about you as an independent trade union formation engaging in politics. Now, what you are implicitly criticizing, which is where I would agree with you, is if you are a political union as opposed to a social movement union. As a political union, you are subordinated to a political party, like the ANC in this case, or the Communist Party. And that's where the COSATU went wrong.
Let's look at COSATU, Prof. COSATU in the 80s was founded on the principle that it would be independent in how it did its work.
Exactly.
And in being that independent organization, it would stay true to itself. And the question I'm asking you is, has it done that?
Now, that's where it went wrong. It's caught between its original mandate, a social movement unionism, engaging in society, broader society, as well as in the workplace. You've got to do both to truly serve your members and the broader working class.
Let me just say that we did invite COSATU to be a part of this discussion, and they declined or were not available by the time that we had to record. But now let's talk about the unions that are here. Take issue with Tulane, for example. He's saying they are squeaky clean, they are representing the workers. Are they?
Now, I'm sure you can represent your members in the very narrow sense. Then you become like an insurance company.
Yes.
You have clients and you serve your clients. And you can do that very well, or you can do that badly. I would argue that's a very narrow conception of trade unions. It doesn't serve the workers' interests in general, because the capitalist system is at issue. The capitalist system is what is causing these job losses. The capitalist system is not providing for good wages and proper working conditions. So if you don't have a systemic approach, if you just focus narrowly on the workplace and to plead with employers for the crumbs of the table, then you are at a
But is the
end.
formation of a socialist party then the solution?
I believe so. Well, WASP is one option, but I personally think you need a much broader based movement. For example, the one that NUMSA is promoting, which I don't think WASP is necessarily opposed to, but they can speak for themselves.
Okay.
But you need a broader based movement, and this is what the movement for socialism that NUMSA is proposing, which I think has got lots of promise for this country.
All right, Tulane.
Look, I think it's unfair to look at the issue of independence of trade unions in a linear fashion and create an analog of an insurance company. It's really understated. I think the NACTU does participate in all spaces where COSATU is engaging, save for the alliance structures. We engage in tripartite forums at NEDLEC, even internationally at the ILO. We engage with economic policy, we engage with socio-economic policies. We advance primarily the interest of the workers that we represent. What the independence actually means is that our views are not tainted or clouded with other interests, save for the interests of the workers that we represent.
But how realistic are those views? Let's take your representation of AMCU in the negotiations.
Yes.
The demand for a wage of 12,500, the loss of lives that we've seen, the loss of jobs that we've seen, loss of income. I mean, I was reading somewhere that the income lost to date is in the region of about 5 billion. How is that in the interest of workers?
Well, look, if you were to test the affordability of the 12,500 that workers are demanding, we could get into that argument, but I don't think that's the essence of your question. Workers in South Africa are paid very low. The South African economy is a low-wage economy that is underpinned by slave wages. And in the mining sector, this is very manifest. Even if you look at the migrant labor systems, the conditions of living for these mining workers, and the value that they are generating from underground. South Africa is a monopoly with over 75% of platinum in the world, and yet we don't control the platinum price. It is controlled by the New York Mercantile Stock Exchange.
Yes, you're right. That's a different discussion.
Yes, I'm coming to the issue of the price of the wages. If we were to be robust in our engagements and take control of the strategic assets that we have, I think the price of platinum will be driven primarily by the input cost, which will also include labor costs.
I'm asking you the loss of about 5 billion rand in wages to the workers, the loss of lives that we've seen. All of that, how is it in the interest of the workers that you represent? But
let's unpack these two issues. The loss of lives,
yes.
I presume you are referring to the 2012 massacre. That was the state intervention in a labor dispute. And we have always said that you don't need government intervention in a workplace dispute. And that was clandestine, irresponsible policing by individuals who, instead of facilitating a settlement or a discussion between the employer and the worker and the workers, they actually shot those workers and killed them. So that is negligence in its own right, and it's something that we have always indicated, even though some of the issues are sub judice at the Falam Commission. But the loss of wages, the loss of wages that you are referring to, I think the Labour Relations Act has put the balance of powers when it comes to issues of collective bargaining to the no work, no pay principle, which is supposed to balance again the loss of income by the employers during a strike process. But if you are going to look at statistics, in a linear process again, I do not want to use strong words, but in a linear process again, you are going to lose the value of what is going to be the outcome of that strike. The value of that strike is that the next negotiation process will be at a higher level. And this is a revolution. We are talking about something that has not happened in South Africa. So
it's been worthwhile for you?
It is very worthwhile, and it will change the terrain and the landscape of negotiations.
Well, I guess that still remains to be seen. We're going to have to watch this one. But we have to take another short break, and we are taking your thoughts. Some of your Facebook messages are coming in thick and fast, and also your Twitter messages. Do keep them coming. And let's continue this discussion right after this break. Stay with us. Let's look at some of the losses in production when it comes to the mining sector. 5.3 billion rand lost in production in 2012-2013, about 180 million rand, or million rand lost in coal production in the same period. So there's been a lot of losses, and that has put the economy of South Africa at stake. And the question I'm asking, Prof, is, has it been worthwhile, or are these unions holding South Africa at ransom?
Well, the question should be really posed to the employers. Are they holding the country to ransom? You know, it's recently been written in the Daily Maverick. There's a very good article on this precise issue. How the mining bosses, Anglo-American, are committed to a 39% profit. A profit rate, because that's what the global shareholders demand. 39% profit. Right? And they can't afford to pay workers this 12,500 rand.
So for you, it is the employers and not the
employers. There's
the
enough value created in the production process for them to pay this. But they need to maintain a particular profit margin. And this is the legacy of the system, this economic system that
I haven't seen Tulani agreeing with you so much this whole evening. But let's come to WASP and the fact that what you are saying in terms of bringing a change to the way that the workers are being treated and bringing a change to just all of the good things that should be coming to them. That's what every union says. Every union purports to support workers' rights and to drive the workers' agenda. How are you doing that successfully?
Well, again, as a political party, we're not aligned directly with any trade union, but we work within many different trade unions.
Right.
For example, AMCU, NUMSA, NUM.
But you're championing the workers' rights.
Exactly, and you're championing working class independence, and that's the independence that I think is relevant when it comes to trade unions. It can't be a question of some abstract independence from politics, and politics is in everything that we do, and it affects workers every day. I think the professor was right when he said that you know, it's a question of the capitalist system. And any union that tries to ignore that its mandate needs to be, its program needs to be a socialist program to change not only, you know, the wages by 1, 2, 9 or 10%, but to change the whole wage system where workers, that depends on workers creating wealth for a tiny
Realistically,
elite.
how would you do that? I mean, we don't have the time during this program to unpack how your socialist structure would work in South Africa, but how would you do that in a country where you've got people that need to make money? Everybody acknowledges that you've got to make money, but how would you turn it around such that you change the whole idea of capitalism in South Africa?
Well, capitalism needs to be ended. Capitalism is the system where you have 0.01% of the world's population owning the vast majority of resources in society. And that, for that to be overturned, we're not going to do that by passing a law in Parliament. It is a revolutionary transformation of society that is needed. For that, the most immediate task for us.
Yeah. Sounds like a
for
great
workers.
phrase, revolutionary transformation, but what does
It
it mean?
is,
Are
but
you
in
going to be
reality-
snatching the banks, snatching the mines, exactly what the EFF is proposing?
I'm getting to the next step, which I think is that there needs to be a revival and rebuilding of working class movement, both within trade unions, rebuilding trade unions, because there's a big gap that not COSATU has failed to fill, and that other federations are also not succeeding in filling. That is a center of working class unity, but also on community level, in the youth movement where there's a big vacuum. So that's the next step that we're trying to contribute to by forming the Workers' and Socialist Party and contesting the elections this year to take some steps forward in rebuilding a workers' movement.
Can that be done, Tulan?
Well, it could be done probably if they were to do their work, but from an active perspective, I think we prefer to focus on issues at the core first that are confronting our members at that level. And NACTU is an apolitical federation, our unions are apolitical, and understanding that our members are political animals. They belong to different political parties, and they've got freedom of choice to choose who they want to join, and we will not prescribe which political party they must go and vote for. But the principles of WASP, if they are aligned to those of NACTU and they advance a similar agenda, we do work with social movements in specific campaigns, and we will collaborate with WASP wherever it is possible, whenever there is need, and we have worked with other political organizations before. So.
Prof, I'm gonna take your comments just now. Let me just read some of your Facebook comments that came through Interface on SABC3. Derek Mtembo says, if mining companies are prepared to lose so much revenue during strikes, that implies that they have the means to raise the wages. They simply don't want to. That's agreeing with your point earlier, Prof. And Khan Dalvi says, we're a capitalist state. The majority of black people still live in squalid conditions, and many still earn below the breadline. That's a point that was made a little earlier on the program. Tezo Tasman says, labor laws in South Africa protect jobs that exist already, while at the same time making it difficult for new jobs to be created due to the resulting inflexibility. That's a whole nother discussion that we can get to. And Denzel Harper says, give mine workers a better deal as theirs is hardship, and that goes to all and sundry, that it's such a difficult work to do, and you know the employers need to be mindful of that. You wanted to make a point, Prof?
Well, you see, there are two things I want to say. The one is, there's a recent book that's just been published by a French economist, Thomas Piketty, on capitalism and inequality. And I see Business Day has picked up on this as well, not necessarily on the book, but on the theme. It's caused waves around the world. And in our country, you know, we're always very far behind to catch up with it. Saying that capitalism itself, with this exceptionally widening inequality over the past 30 years in particular, that's going to be the downfall of the system if they don't address this issue of inequality. So they could try and save the system by addressing it, which is what they did in the past. But if they don't, this is what it's going to bring its downfall. But the other thing that the labor movement is now beginning, and NUMSA in particular, is beginning to take on board. And this is something that needs to be surfaced. And I'm not sure, I don't see much of it coming out from WASP or from NACTU, is the ecological question. Now, capitalism is destroying the environment.
Yeah.
NUMSA has got a very thought-through proposal around a socially owned renewable energy sector. COSATU's last year finally come up with an environmental policy. Now, that is an issue that should be at the center of union struggles because, as many people say, the environment is a working class issue.
Okay. Quick one, as we close. Is there a future for the trade unions in South Africa going forward? Yes, no?
Well, I think it would be as long as they connect with all these broader social concerns. It has to.
I think a very exciting future is just opening up because workers are breaking out of the political prison that COSATU has imposed to the Tripartite Alliance in the past 20 years or so.
Strong words, Tule.
I think trade unions are becoming even more relevant now, and they are championing the cause of the workers. We're breaking new ground, and we're changing the terrain. The issues of inequality that Prof was talking about,
yes.
It will take an average worker in South Africa 37 lifetimes to earn an annual salary of a CEO in South Africa.
Sure.
And as long as we don't address those issues.
Let's end it on that note. We've run out of time, unfortunately. Thank you very much for coming through to talk to us. And this discussion is going to happen every year. We need to review whether or not the unions that are supposed to be representing the workers are indeed doing so. And if you want to continue the conversation, you know where to find us. Interface on SABC3, that's how you find us on Facebook. Or you can tweet me at Tembisa Magele. Tonight, good night.